Hey guys, welcome to another installment of the Academy, and thanks for watching.
All right, I'm gonna slowly kick it off here. For first of all, thank you guys, obviously again for giving some of your time to not play ASL, but to talk about it. This is the second round table. Same thing as the first. I'll ask if you guys could mute your mics just so we don't catch any background noise. And if you want to ask a question, there's a chat in here. If you click on the chat, if you see ASL MMP Roundtable, if you there's a chat bubble. I have the chat open. If something pressing comes up and you want to talk, drop a line in there. And because I do want this to be interactive and in positive ways. But the idea today, so first off, I had a player who was going to come here, one of the probably 10 best players in the world, and talk about ASL and strategy around some different things, but that got canceled. So I wanted to do something that I thought might be useful. So I'm going to step out on the ledge and we're going to walk through some examples. And today it'll be routing. Um, and I've got some Basil stuff. So what's going to happen is when that stage comes, I'll explain how to do this. But what'll happen is I'll switch over to my bigger PC and I'll share my screen. You guys will see next to my name it'll say live, and you'll click on that to join that, and you'll be able to see my screen. And we'll just walk through some stuff, and like again, interactive, but hopefully helpful for some younger players, some newer players, and maybe learn some stuff you didn't know, and maybe help me learn something that I think I might be interpreting wrong. So anyway, to start off with, updates on products. First and foremost, Ponry. So just an FYI for you guys, we have in the last probably 4 to 5 months, we've gone to a 24-month calendar, 18 to 24 month, and we have multiple stages for products. Obviously, there's submission. Product doesn't usually get into the queue until we have MMP resources committed, and this is ASL, by the way. So we have MMP resources committed to playtesting, which is the center of our playtesting is the Youse House. And then I'm running a pretty quick turnaround sort of playtest on Basil for anybody interested. But what we have is playtesting. It gets onto our schedule when we have what we call FSB, which is final stage begins. Final stage begins is when I take the submission and I've done everything I can do with, and I pass it to Chaz, and I no longer touch it. It's done. Play testing is done. Layout is unofficially done until it gets proofed, and all the things go with that. But final stage, we plan on being 60 to 90 days from final stage to pre-order or final stage to release, depending on the product. And in that note, Ponry has entered final stages. All the product has been handed off to Chaz, and we are planning on Ponry being available for pre-order no later than July. And I'm going to preface this with saying the same thing. We are committed to hitting these targets. Doesn't mean we will, and we won't hit them just to hit them if we don't believe we're putting out the best possible product we can put out. So Ponry is planned for July. Um, Journal 15, which has got some really interesting content. We are working towards an August release for Journal 15. Um, Chef DuPont is playtest is finished. It will be entering final stages soon. We're working towards a pre-order of August of this year. Along those lines, Marco Polo Bridge, both the it'll be the first product we've ever put two products out for, both ASL and a starter kit product. They'll be separate. All playtesting is done. We're working towards a pre-order date of July or August for that as well. And obviously, it goes without saying, I'm obviously excited about all of them, but one that we're really diving deep into the playtest now is Andy Rogers' Karkoff in Flames. You might remember Andy did Hatton in Flames. Um, that is being heavily play tested. Um, our goal is to have it available for pre-order sometime around ASLOC this year. Um, and so I don't see any hurdles for that yet. Um, and then you have the Spanish Civil War module, which is massive. The EASL rulebook, the EASL Hazel, and the Starter Kit magazine. They're all in some form of work right now. Um, but the plan is that all of those will be pre-ordered or released before the end of the calendar year. So you can see, obviously, it's a very, very aggressive schedule. But we're pretty fired up about all of the things we've got in the queue. What I was going to do is so again, I said earlier we had planned on having a player here, but what I'm going to do is I thought we would walk through something, at least gameplay. So what I'm going to do is and I'll walk you guys through this. I'm going to share my screen here in a minute. Here's another thing that I wanted to throw out for you guys. For those of you that were at Winter Offensive last year, you were there for the unveiling of what we call the ASL Hall of Fame. And we inducted our first members last year. And included in the induction were two scenarios. Guards Counterattack and Hill 621 are in the Hall of Fame. We would like the players to get involved this year with that aspect of the Hall of Fame. And I don't have details. I'm sure Neil has the capability on his website. Maybe put up a poll, get some suggestions. We'll have something official, and Brian can jump in if he wants on the MMP website at some point, because we'd like you guys to be involved in the selection of those things. Official scenarios only. But that's something that we're interested in doing. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I am going to swap Discord. I won't leave Discord, but I'm going to go onto my big computer here, and I'm going to share my screen. You guys will see under the MMP Roundtable that it'll say Garrick 38 is live. So what I did, I after our player canceled, I thought that we could talk ASL. And what I did was I created some examples. So we would walk through. So basically, this is can everybody see that? Can you guys see me moving around on the screen here? Okay. All right. So this is the beginning of the route phase. All right. And we're going to just walk through cases, route phase examples. But one of the things that for newer players, if you're on here, one of the things that I find very helpful in the route phase is to at the beginning of your route phase, find your target hex. And by that I mean at the beginning of your route phase, you have to choose your target hex, which is the hex in movement factors that is closest to the routing unit that abides by all the routing rules. A10.51, I can't emphasize enough for you to read, reread, and reread that. Because generally, when you find your target hex in the route phase, you're going through all of the route rules from an understanding perspective. So I'm going to start up here. You guys all see that circle there? We're going to start up here in the corner with the Russian 447 and the broken German 468 in C3. Pretty simple, but sometimes confusing to people. If you start in a building, you can ignore the building that you're starting in, but that's not the same for wood. So basically, when you look at this, you might think one of these buildings, but it's actually B3. B3 is your route target because that is the closest in movement factors, abiding by all the other route rules. So you would route here for 2. Now you could continue obviously to A4, but you would have to stop there. And that would obviously open you up to some problems if he moves into B3. B3 would be your initial target. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the initials setup, and then I'm going to add units to the route. Okay. So now we're going to start with this one. Now this is the route phase. Your target hex now becomes, and hold off till I'm done, because I know that you guys are going to say, oh yeah, but I have that. I just have this different way. You've got 3 movement points to C5. You can't go to either one of these two, right? 3, 3, and 3. Everything else, this is 4, and you can't route adjacent. So you get to pick these 3. The problem becomes going to C4 forces interdiction from B2, right?
So if you have these three, you can still get to C5. You could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? You just because you don't have to use the movement factors, the shortest in movement factors, as long as you get there. Or you could go here, or you could go here, and you could keep routing once you reach all of these, right? 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, 5, whatever. Now, the problem then becomes, well, let's make it a problem. So now we're going to show this guy. One thing to remember at the beginning of the route phase, picking your target, generally anything under a concealment is invisible to the routing unit. It doesn't matter. It doesn't factor. You don't get to count it under a concealment unless unless and until your opponent reveals and loses concealment to either force surrender, or no quarter in effect, forces death, and all the things that go with that, right? So now we have this situation. All right. Now the thing is, this becomes obviously the same three targets are in play, right? This unit doesn't exist. You have to pick one of these hexes, and let's just say you go here. All right, and whoever that is, can you please mute your mic? Thank you. Hey, John. 94. Yep. Hey, John. Let me mute this way. Okay. All right. So anyway, you still have to pick these three, right? If he doesn't do anything, you go here. But here's the thing. We'll play this as the player drops concealment here when you step here. Now, the first thing you have to do is reassess your targets. Now, what is the closest? Abiding by all the route rules, not getting any closer to these guys after you leave, it becomes F2, right? F2 then becomes your route because you can't go here, you can't go back here, you can't go here. So it becomes F2, or if I'm not, yeah, E2. So you would go here, could not be interdicted. That's 2, that's 4, or 2 and 4 and 6, or 2 and whatever, just stop there. But the other thing that, and I think better players will end up doing things like this. You certainly don't want to go in here, right? So you'd go 1, 3, 5. Now he can drop concealment at any point, anytime during the route phase. You end your route phase here. He drops concealment. No quarters in effect. You die. No quarters not in effect. He can take prisoners, or you can force him to take no quarter, right? So, I mean, obviously, if you don't know, I mean, and it's always conditional, right? I mean, if this is an objective building for the game, that might change what you do here. Maybe you have units here and you want to force him to drop concealment, so for ambush or whatever, then maybe you route here. But for the most part, I would think you would go from there to there to there or to there. I would probably end up there, but that's not really gonna. Either way, you're kind of screwed. Now, if we go here, now we are presented with a little different problem, right? You cannot see the 458 on the hill because of the orchards. If the orchard was in season or out of season, you could see him, and you'd just be dead. But that he's, or you wouldn't just be dead. Actually, you'd have to route to here. You couldn't route to here. Yeah, you would be dead. Actually, yep, you would be dead. So you would be dead for no quarter, or you would surrender. However, orchards are in season, so it becomes the same 3, or it actually becomes C5, and yeah, it becomes C5 now, right? You can't go here. You can't go here. This is getting, you would go here, and then you would see him. Or no, this is blocked, right? This is blocked. Yeah, this is blocked, by the way, guys. It is blocked. So if you look, it's blocked by the hill, the crest line there. Okay. So then you would move here, right? Now he drops concealment. Now you choose F2. You go here. You see him. You have to get interdicted in this hex. You will get interdicted in this hex. And then your new hex becomes E2 if you survive the route, right? And again, I apologize for if I mess it up, but you guys can jump in and yell at me if you see changes. So anyway, now we move over to here, okay? And here we have a broken Russian 458 and a German 467 in the ground level of this building. All right. You can ignore the building, obviously. Any building that you start in routing, you can ignore. But you need to select your target hex, right? Not a building for route purposes. Lumberyards are not. It is 2, 4, 7, 2, 4, 2, 4, 2, 5, right? So 2, 4 wins. It's I6 or J6. So you would go 2, 4, could continue for 6, anywhere along this line, anywhere along this line. Now, when we reveal this guy, that changes things a little bit. But hold on, let me get my okay. So now it becomes 2, 4, 6. 2, 4, 6, right? 2, 4, 6. You can ignore 2, 4. Yeah. So it's 1, 2, or 3 of these 3, right? Because those are all the closest in movement factors. Or obviously you could go upstairs. Now I'm actually anxious to hear from you guys because we were talking about this earlier. If I route upstairs, which I can do because I'm in a hex with a stairwell. So if let me do this info. Okay. So if I route, all right, I'm going to route to level 1, right? And then I'm going to route to level 2. When I route to level 2, that's 2 movement points, right? Can I then route to here? I'm saying no, because once I'm in the second level of this hex, I am literally 3 hexes away, right? He would have to go ground, first, second. If I move here, it's just first to second level. So I'm saying that you can't move on top of the 4, 6, 7. You can move here or here, right? 1, 2, 4, 6. But, and Brian, you can jump in here if you want to talk about this. But these are in a sense, in a 3D perspective, up 1 hex, up 2 hexes, over. When I'm at the second level of this building, I am literally 3 hexes away. The rule states you can't get any closer in hexes to a unit once you leave its line of sight. Right? So there's that. And
So
then go ahead.
in terms of hexes, then, Curt, you couldn't go over the top of it because you'd be getting closer.
Correct. Right. Okay. Yes. That's the way I was playing it. It's just such an edge case that I've never had it happen.
Correct. I've only ever seen it happen once or twice where it's
right.
mattered.
So basically, I'm adjacent. I move up to level 1, I'm 2 hexes away. I move up to level 2, I'm 3 hexes away. I'm still 3 hexes away here. I'm still 3 hexes away here. But moving on top of him would put me 2 hexes away.
No, right now when you go up, you're 1 hex away. When you go up, you're 2 hexes away.
Right.
When you go over, you're 0 hexes away.
What? But actually, so that's the question, right? Hold on a second. So if I go, I'm 1 hex away right now. Right?
If it says in terms of hexes, then all that matter are hexes and the locations within that.
Right, but hold on, Jimmy. Let me ask you this. I'm 1 hex away right now, right?
Correct.
Okay, when I move to the first level, I'm 2 hexes away.
No, you're 1 hex away. Hexes don't have levels.
Okay, so it's locations.
No, it's hexes, but it's the levels don't matter.
Okay,
Correct.
okay. So then I am 1 hex away. And then I go upstairs, I'm still 1 hex away.
Correct.
All right. Okay, so then
think
you
of it,
right.
think
Okay,
of it, think of it this way. If there
Yep.
was an imaginary line of sight between level 2 J6, or sorry, level 2 J4 in level 1 J3, what would the range be?
Right. No,
1 hex.
that's what I was trying to figure out and talking, trying to walk through, because like I said, it's such an edge case. I don't know that I've ever had it. Somebody asked, when does encircled upstairs take effect? Now I'm going to say that if that unit is there, right? It wouldn't matter, because as soon as I went upstairs, encirclement generally means when you're upstairs and all paths to the ground level are occupied by a good order enemy unit.
Correct. So
Right.
encirclement
So-
wouldn't kick in until the German moved into the
Right.
into
So
territory.
if you're routing, you would route upstairs, blah blah blah, wherever you ended up, and then if he advances here, you would be encircled.
Correct. As soon as
Right.
the Germans have occupied
Right.
all ground level, actually all stairwells that cut
Right.
you off.
As
getting
soon as
downstairs.
you can't trace a path to the ground level.
Correct.
Right. Okay. So then we're going to go. Here's case 3. So let's pop
So
this
wait a
guy
minute.
up. Go ahead.
So imagine he goes up 2 levels and then moves on top of the 447. Put the 4 or the 467. Put it
Right.
back there. Again. So if he
He
goes to
can't.
the second level, he
That's
can,
what
because they can't see each other.
That's
no
that's
line of
what I was
sight.
saying, but it says hexes.
Right.
It doesn't matter, because you can never, you remember where everything is for the purposes of routing.
Correct.
So he knows he's there when he's routing, and he knows the range is 1 hex. So if he moves on top of the 467, he knows the range is 0 hexes. He can't go there.
That was the debate we were having. Because I was
We're gonna have to
picturing
look into that one.
right, and what I was
agree to
picturing, Brian, was I was picturing going up to first level puts him 2 hexes away, but it actually doesn't. Hexes aren't measured in locations; they're measured in hexes, right? Because if I go to in my example, I'm going up to 1, then to 2. I'm 3 locations away from him. If I move on top of him, I'm now 2 locations, but that doesn't matter because the 10.51 says hexes.
Right. It's the same thing I said. If you're
Right.
on level 2, if you're on level 2 I4, and you take a shot in I3, the range is 1 hex.
Right.
Doesn't matter that they're 3 locations away. The way you're
Right.
trying
No,
to
yes.
range is 1 hex.
Except you don't right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. And just an FYI, guys, if you were in I3, you wouldn't get point blank fire firing up to level 2. Just let you know that. Anyway. Okay. So I want to look into that more, but that makes sense. Now we're going to add this guy to the mix. Okay.
I will
Now
say, Curt, one
Go
last
ahead.
thing. I will tell you that Klaus and I have discussed that a couple of times, and he may have a different opinion. So it's worth
Okay.
asking him.
Yeah. Yep. Klaus and Perry. That's why they are who they are, baby. All right. So here we go. Here's a new one. Obviously, the routing upstairs thing becomes a little bit different in the sense that once you get to the second level here, you can now see this guy. Right? So your options become limited. It would be here, or here.
Does he see that guy? Isn't the lumberyard a level 1 obstruction to LOS? So even
Right,
it's like
but once you got to level 2 here,
creates 1 blind hex.
right, but the range has to be greater than
Isn't L4 1 blind hex?
right, but if the range exceeds, or if the range,
You would have to be 2 hexes. You'd have to
Okay.
get to level 3
Okay.
to reduce
all right,
that
we'll
to
go to the
3.
ground. We'll go to the ground example, right? So right now, it is J6 or K7.
Factories across the country.
Right? And M6. You would go here for 2, you would see him, which then would change your target to J6 or K7. You could stop here because this is interdiction. This is all interdiction. But that eliminates that hex. And
So that route right there is kind of an interesting question. You could look, so because you have a legal route path upstairs, right? You can route legally without taking interdiction. Therefore, you don't surrender.
Right.
Now you could up to low crawl to the woods, right to the building where you're at, based on that space. Oh, can you? Yeah, because you'd be decreasing the range to J6 or K7. You could opt
Right.
to take interdiction in K6.
Right. Yes, but the thing is, you stop here, number one, because everything else is interdictable. You don't want to get faced interdiction unless you want. Again, conditions will change. But the fact of the matter is, you want to, if you want to avoid interdiction, but then you're going to, it's all fraught with peril. But you don't get interdicted here. You could low crawl here. You could go upstairs. But this unit freezes this unit, and then if you want to go here, you're getting interdicted.
If prisoners are double victory points, I continue
Right,
out and hope
right,
split.
right. And obviously, there's two conditions be concerned with, which is no quarter being in effect or not in effect. So, all right, and then now we'll move over here, and we've got an American 666, broken in open ground, normal range and line of sight, has to rout, right? So first things first, you can ignore B8 because it's equidistant. You can ignore C7. You can also take both of them, by the way. You could go C7, C6, C5, B8, B9, B10. So if you can ignore these two, this one becomes your objective, your target, right? 2, 4, 6. You go here. You could go here. 1, no, yeah, 5, but you'd get interdicted, so there'd be no reason to do that, right? But that's pretty simple. But again, it gets back to when you're routing. One of the things that good players do is understand. Number one, you can use routed units and DM units to block progression for when you're on the defensive. You can't move through routed units unless they're disrupted, right?
Kurt,
So
Kurt,
what's that?
can I interrupt
Yeah.
you again?
Yep.
So that route for the American unit, if he's ignoring B8 and C7, then his next target is B9, which is 4 points away.
Right. Okay. Yes. Right.
He could go to E8, which is 3. So actually, it would probably be E8 would be his next.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, so he could ignore these two. So this becomes your first target. I only missed that but you could go here and get interdicted. Here's the other thing. You don't have to use, and jump in, you do not have to use the shortest and movement factors as long as you reach your target.
Correct.
Right. And trenches and foxholes can stop you from reaching your target, but that's okay.
Foxholes, yes. I don't know about trenches.
So the move would be, you could go 1, 3, but interdicted here, or you go 2, 4, and then 6 to here, right? All right. Or you could do what he said. You could go 2, 4, 6.
8.
2, 4. Right. You could go 6 though.
That's 8.
Oh no, I'm sorry. That's up the hill. Yeah. I'm sorry. 2, 4. That'd be 8. Sorry. Or you go 2, 4, 6 this way as well, or 2, 4, 6. Right. Okay. So now we'll throw this guy in the mix, right? This guy obviously eliminates B9. You could still take C7, but E8 becomes your target. 2, 4, 6, right? Now, when we throw this guy in the mix, things change, right? Shortest, and you can ignore these. You can't go here anyway. And it looks like 2, 4, but you can't go here. You can't go here, and you can't go here. So C7 is your only route path. 2, 4, 6, 2, 4, 6. Right? All right. Yep. No, he couldn't leave the He couldn't leave the building. Yeah. All right. So then, no, he would have to go C7, and then up if you want. Right. Yeah. Yep. All right. So down here, we've got a 648. We've got a German, broken German 468. Now, this is kind of cool in the sense that, so the upstairs stuff still applies here, right? The upstairs stuff still applies, and he couldn't encircle you because he only has one of the staircases. So you go upstairs, right? You could go up 2, 3, 4, 6. You could go 2, 3, 4 to the second level, 6, whatever. All right. But for route purposes, you can ignore this. And if you ignore this, you immediately have to pick a target. So the target becomes K13, and this is kind of goofy. This is where you got to. This is why I always say, and I'm trying to, as I get more learned with the rules, understand the 10.51 to right 2, 5, right 2, 3, 5. It becomes K13 or I12. You can't get interdicted by the 648 going to I12, but you could go. You obviously, in my opinion, based on VCs, you take this one if you wanted, but this is also a target option because they're both 5 movement factors away. Right. All right. And then when we put this guy on the map, what happens is it becomes the same thing. You start with either of these, right? Then once you get here, you have to reassess. You've moved 2. The nearest in movement factors is now 2, 4, 7, 2, 4, 6. Same building, you could ignore it. 2, 4, 6, 8, right? So 7, and it becomes this one, right? This is 2, this is 3 away, but it's equidistant. So you can ignore it. So you can now move anywhere the route rule, as long as you abide by the route rules. You're here for 2. You could go 4, 5, 6 because that's your closest, or you could go 5, 7 or 5. Well, stop at 5, but you could also go back this way. Pick your target first is what I guess the point I'm trying to make for players that are learning the route rules. Pick your target first because A10.51 is very, very clear, as clear as ASL rules can be. And once you learn 2.51 or 10.51, it makes the route phase so much easier to navigate in the ASL system, right? So again, upstairs is an option. 2 upstairs for 3, 5. 2 upstairs for 3, upstairs for 4, 6. Because you can't go here because you're moving a hex closer to these 2 guys, right? All right. And then we will move down here. And this is a juxtaposition. This is kind of a screwed up situation because it should be the Italian unit should always be broken. And this should be a British unit. But for humorous sake, we'll take it the other way around. You got a broken British 458 and the Italian 447, right? You could ignore this building. You obviously can't route there because you can't route adjacent. So the your route becomes G14, G15 targets, right? And remember, when you route, you are allowed to continue routing as long as you're entering another building or woods hex from the building or woods hex you entered, right? So G14 or G15 becomes your target. You go 2, you can go 4, 6, 2, 4, 6, 2, 4, 6, 2, 4, 6, 2, 2, 4, 6. A lot of options for that, right? Now, where am I at? Hit the G13. All right. Now we throw this guy in the mix, right? F15, G14 is no longer an option, right? Because they can see each other. So it's 2, 4, 6. And again, same thing, 2, 4, 6. Actually, yeah. So you're 2 hexes away, 3 hexes away. You could move here because it's still 3 hexes away, right? 2, 4, 6, 2, 4, 6, 2, 4, 6. Yeah, you guys see what I'm getting at. Now, if we
So the interesting thing in this route, Curt, is G15 is now ignorable because it's no further away from 13. So if you wanted to head to G17 or H15,
right,
you could go, right?
Right, and thank you for pointing that out because I had that, but I didn't know. So what he just said was, I'm 2 hexes from the 3, 4, 6. I go here, I'm still 2 hexes, so I could ignore that, right? You also saw that, guys, right? That's a steeple. All right, that's another piece to this. I can route upstairs to the first level, but I can't route up to the steeple. because the steeple has a 1/2 squad stacking limit, unless SR says differently. But the fact of the matter is I could route upstairs to the first level and be fine. But I couldn't route to the steeple level because of the stacking limits in the steeple level.
And the other interesting thing is once you get to G15, you're not required to stay in a building or woods hex because you're still in the process of trying to reach your destination. You're only required to stay in a building or woods hex once you reach your destination. So you could go, for instance, to G4, to G15,
right.
G17.
So what he's saying is, this is ignorable. So I'm not forced to stay in it when I'm routing, which is kind of contradictory to the way the rule reads because it makes it sound like you must stop. This is an edge case again because it's equidistant from him. So he would go here for 2, could go 4, 6, could go 3, 5, could actually go 3, 5 here as well.
But can you? Hey, is that Jim? Is that you, Jim, speaking? I mean,
He's still
when
recorded at
he moves into
Hold on. You go ahead. And speak. Whoever's asking. No, that's all right. Whoever's
this
asking.
is Noah. If
right.
Once you move to G15, though, don't you still have to abide by the you can only go into other woods or buildings? How could you pop across the street?
This is ignorable, right?
Yeah, but that's still different than not a
right. I don't think you can go to G16.
Building and woods.
He can't. So you'd have to assume that H14, H15 are open ground because you just don't have a good example here.
Well, hold on a second. Let me ask you this, Jim. Here's my target, right?
Yeah.
Initially. Now, once I reach my target, I can only continue routing through another building or woods hex.
Correct, but you can ignore it as a target because
so does that? Okay, that's what I'm asking you. If I can ignore that as a target, does that allow me to exit a building woods hex into open ground?
It would if as long, but the problem is once you still have to abide by movement instructions, right? So G15's 2, H14's 4, G15's 2, H15's 4, G15's 2, G16's 3, G17 is 5. Right. So to be a good example, 14 and 15, H14 and 15 would have to be open ground.
Yeah, but here's my argument. Once I get here, if I'm ignoring this is the closest building or woods hex.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I have to go here.
Yeah, I just quibble with G17 being a target.
Right. No, I don't think it is. So once you're here,
I don't think it is. I was just trying to make the point that
it's not.
If it's not your target, it's only once you reach your target that you're required to move from building to woods.
Right. So this is your initial target. Even though even though you can ignore it, you can't leave a building to go into open ground to get to another building. So you could go to H14, or you could. So this would be 2. This would be 4. This would be 6. This would be 2. This would be 4. This would be 6. You could go to any of these, but you could also ignore them because they're equidistant right there.
So put the broken unit at F14 again.
I have a comment though on Jim's. Jim, I don't.
Hold on one second, Matt. I'll make it obvious here.
Okay.
So imagine H14 and H15 are open ground.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Give me 1 second, okay?
Oh, we're gonna get an overlay.
Yeah, you get the dragon overlay or whatever. So that's open ground. Now pick your rock targets.
So I can ignore this.
Correct.
Right. I can't go here or here. So 2, 3, 5, 2, 3, 5.
I16, I15, I14.
Okay,
2, 3, 5.
All right. Okay,
so my point is that because you haven't reached your target when you get to G15, the prohibition about leaving a woods or a building still don't apply yet.
See, I
disagree. And
I agree. I disagree with that.
If you look at Jim, if you look at the last sentence, 10.5.1 there on page A24, right? It says upon reaching a building woods location not adjacent to a known enemy unit, a routing unit must stop and end its route phase in that building woods hex location, even if overstacked, unless the unit can directly enter another building woods location. It's next entered. Not necessarily the same building, right? I think.
Check the exception right after that. Nobody reads the exception.
Correct.
Right. Keep going. A routing unit may also ignore if that hex is no farther from the known enemy unit. Right. If a unit must route through a now ignored hex to reach its destination, But that, yeah, I don't think that I don't think that exception lets you get away from. So that's your argument. You think it does? You think?
Well,
I'm 100% certain it does.
Okay.
right. If you start F14, I think the key here is not to move to G15 and say, I'm going to ignore this. You have to select your destination from F14.
Right.
And you indicate, I'm not going to G15, so I can ignore that
this.
one.
So
And
then you
do
go
just like Jim says, and
right.
what's the closest after that?
2,
So
3,
ignore
5,
Golden Woods,
2,
Hex,
3,
Hex.
5, 2, 3, 5, 2, 3, 5. So these 4 locations are all valid.
Yeah. And Jim, are you is your certainty based on a Perry says? Has a Q&A been on this?
I don't know that it needs a Q&A, but I can
Okay.
certainly look. But I'm
Okay.
100% certain that that's the way I've seen it played.
Right.
Okay. I mean, I just.
No,
again,
we'll figure that out.
No, that's okay. No, I'll look it up. Fair enough.
It's an edge
I mean,
case.
I see your. I mean, it's all under the exception, so I can see the argument for it.
Right. And whoever jumped in at the end, I think, had it right too. All right. So let's move this off.
That's weird.
And the hold on one second. Hip E15 and G13. Okay, so let's hip this guy. Let's move. Where's our? All right, where the hell? Oh, there he is. Okay. So this is the route situation now, right? I can ignore the building I'm in, or I can go upstairs. Same as before. I can route to the first level, and then here to here, 1, 3, 1, 3. But I can ignore this building altogether, right? This is not an option, right? This is 2, 3, 5. This is 2, 3, 5. This is 2, 3, 7. 2, 8. So 2, 2, 3, 5. 2, 3. Oh, I'm sorry. 2, 3, 5. This is actually 2, 3. This is 7. So it's here or here, right? F16 or C16 are now my targets. However, this is 2, 4, which my argument is it now becomes G13. Your target is G13 or upstairs again. But if you're going to leave this building, it has to be to G13. 2, 4 to there, right? 1 upstairs, 2, 3. Couldn't do this 2, 3, 5. Like I said, 2, 3, 5. So this would be your target. And then obviously 2, 4, 6.
Isn't G13 ignorable?
No. Why would it be
not?
ignorable? Why would it be?
Because the conscript in G15. Well, actually, no, it's not. Sorry, I take that back. You're correct.
Right. Because
you're correct. I'm just looking at it wrong.
Yep. No, that's fine. That's fine. Again, this part of wanting to do this was there's some edge cases I want to understand, but I also like this conversation. I think is incredibly helpful for younger players, or newer players. And like I said, I would argue again that when you start your route phase, and you'll see when you play really good players. And I've been lucky because all of my opponents are, for the most part, except Noah, are really, really good players. You'll figure, just like in the movement phase, good players, they don't move a unit and then decide where it's going. They factor out the target hex they're going to move to, the movement factors it takes, and how they're going to get there before they move a unit. And it's a lesson.
I would disagree with that. Good players know where they're going to. Good players know where they're going to route. So
right. No. I think, but situations change, right? And whether it be hip units or concealed units dropping concealment.
Yeah, you can't
or things like that. But I agree. But I would argue, like I said, I think for younger players and newer players learning the route rules, the most important thing to do is pick your target, because when you pick your target, you have to abide by all the things in 10.51, and of all the route rules, that's the one. If you grasp 10.51 and the basic concepts in 10.51, you're going to find routing is much easier, and you're also going to find that routing, when you route, you go back a lot of times. If you reverse engineer, you're going to route guys and say, "Wow, I should have set this up this way," and you start understanding and looking at the board differently from a defensive perspective. Whereas, hey, I'm going to set up here. Well, actually, if I set up here, I'm isolated and I can't route if I get broken. Blah blah blah. Whatever the case may be.
So what I'm saying, Curt, is I start planning my route phase at the beginning of my movement phase. So when I start moving units, I know based on what I can see, because obviously I can't account for people.
And that's a different level, only because there's a lot of variables between the beginning of your movement phase and the route phase, in the sense that it doesn't matter if you're broken. It doesn't matter. I mean, I get that. I've never heard that, but that's certainly something to consider and think through. I mean, that is a better player playing the game.
Yeah,
I would just move my leaders last, because my leaders will be the guys moving to route spaces. And I do that because I'm watching as I go along, and as I break, I'm like, okay, where's this guy routing to? Where's this guy routing to? And I try to move subsequent units in such a way that everything ends up routing to the same space.
Well, I got to say too, one of the things that I've found, and you find not all leaders are created equal, right? I mean, with the British, unless you have a -1 leader, or if you're not going to use the movement factor bonus of the leaders, you should never stack, right? British, because British don't cower, blah, blah, blah. You use them differently. Now, as Russians, generally, you're always shorthanded from a leader to squad perspective. So you'll find yourself when you're starting to play, and as you learn the rules, you'll find yourself in turn 4 of a scenario with the Russians with 4 or 5 broken units that have no chance of rallying during the game because you can't get a leader to them. And those things, again, if you back those things up, those are the things that good players consider when you're setting up.
And Curt, just to add into what Jim said, if McGrath were on this, he would say when he was moving units, he was like, never move a unit to a place where it can't route. It can't route out. Right. Would never. Yeah.
That's a step ahead of kind of where we are from an instruct. Like I'm just trying. Like I said, my goal here.
That's just where McGrath.
Right.
That was his principle.
Right. And he's
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's right.
Yeah. And for those of you that don't know, Spara is Jim Bishop, and Jim has a website called The Bishop Says, probably one of the better unofficial sites in existence. Jim is a very, very rules knowledgeable guy who writes a lot of articles, and you'll find a lot of his are on the edge cases, but also help fundamentally understand some rules, because there's a lot of things that in this game, the move from starter kit to ASL a lot of times is not made by people because they feel like it's too much. And honestly, I can tell you guys from the starter kit perspective, it's not. There's some fundamental things that change, but for the most part, the jump is not that big. All right. So we're going to move over here. We've got a good order French unit, which in and of itself is an anomaly. And then we have an Italian broken 3/4 Persigliare guy. I think he's a 3/3/7. Anyway, this one is easy, right? Initially, 1, 2, 3. He's got these 3, so we can go 2, 4, 6, 2, 4, 6, 2, 4, 6. But he's confined to that setup. All right. Now, when we pop this guy up, things change, right? Now it becomes 2, 4, 6, period. There is no other option. Or you can go 2, 4, whatever. But this is the route that must be taken, right? Now, what we do, we're going to play a little game here. We're going to go 2, 4, and all of a sudden, my friendly neighborhood French guy pops up a hip guy here, right? Now, it becomes, obviously, that's not an option. His new target becomes 1, 3. Right? He can't get there, so he can do anything he wants. He could stay here, or he could go to here for 4 or 5, and then here for 6. Or he could go 2, 4, 5. No, he couldn't. He can't go to J15. So this is it, right? But then again, once he leaves the building, he's got to abide by all the route rules, right? Now, if he doesn't, so I route to here, 2, 4. He pops the hip guy up concealed. I don't have to go here, but that's no longer an option because this doesn't matter. This unit doesn't matter in the sense that he doesn't really exist. He doesn't change my route path until he reveals him, right? But the good player would, I'm hip at the end. Again, obviously situationally dependent. He goes here for 6. At the end of the route phase, I can unhip him, right? And if no quarter's in effect, he can route, or I'm sorry, if no quarter's in effect, well, it actually doesn't matter. He's dead.
Doesn't matter.
But-
He can't end adjacent. He's gone.
Right. He dies. Now, the thing about it is that's not you can't surrender here, right? He dies because he ends the route phase adjacent to an enemy unit.
I
However,
think he died. I'd have to look at the rule again.
right.
Yeah, no,
yeah.
we looked this up. He if no quarter isn't declared, well, the
No,
way,
if you end
yeah,
the
no,
route
I
phase
think he
adjacent to
surrenders because it's still his route phase, right?
No, at
But
the end of the route phase, he's done.
He only surrenders. It says, I think surrender says at the beginning of the route phase, blah, blah, blah. And this is the end.
Right. You can't. Right. He dies. No
It's-
matter what.
I'm not
But
100 I'm not
here's the
100%
thing, though,
certain,
guys.
but
Here's the thing, though. If you're the phasing French player, you can keep him hip until just say prisoners are double. You can keep him hip until your advance phase, and then advance in and do all your nasty stuff. You got like a minus 56 for frickin' ambush or whatever it is, something stupid. But again, conditions. Never lose sight of the victory conditions, number one. But as you route, guys, like I said, for you smart players, you know this already. Find your target first, because within the rules of finding your target are all the route rules, and they become much easier to learn. You know, like when you sit here and go, okay, this guy here, if he's hip, or neither of these guys exist, right? I can ignore both of these because the rule says I can ignore a building that is equidistant from my known enemy unit. I have to route because the route rule says when I'm in normal range and open ground, right? So I have to route, right? It's 2 to go up the hill, 4 to go in the building. It's 1 to go here, 3 to go here. You can trace a path of routing that every path you trace must be the shortest in movement factors. Doesn't mean you have to move that way, but what it means is this is my route target. I can go this way, or I can go this way, but I can ignore these two. So this is my route target. Now I count them for 3, but I don't need to use the 3, right? And then the other thing is what I wanted to do here. So let's just say, even though you can't have foxholes in a paved road, let's just say that these foxholes exist. Now, normally, you guys know in the movement phase, if I want to go from here to here, I go 1, I'm in open ground, it's a 4 down 2. And then 2 into the foxhole. But when I'm routing, that goes out the window. I can go, I get to automatically use the foxholes. So it's not 1, 2, it's 2, 4. But for movement factor purposes, it's 1, 3. So when I'm calculating, I can go 2, 4, but I have to count in the shortest in movement factors, right? So this is a 2 movement. I can ignore this one, but those are both 2. So the shortest building here is 3. But I could go 2, 4, 2, 4. And conditions will dictate sometimes when you change how you change your route paths, and stuff like that. So
it's 2, it's 2,
but
5.
go ahead.
It's 2,
I'm
5.
sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yep, you're right. So it's 1, 2 to go in when I'm routing, but I'm spending 2. And then I'm going 1 to come out, 3, 4, 5.
Correct.
Right. So again, the point being, you don't have to use the foxhole movement, or you don't use the foxhole movement factors, extra movement factors, when you're considering a routing path, unlike moving. Yeah, anybody else want to chime in and ask a question, or that has a question about routing? Don't want everybody yelling at once. Just type in the chat if you'd like to ask a question, and I'll call on you.
Hey, Curt, I just put in 2 Q&As about the routing, the entire route path. So the Q&A basically which part of the route path is considered about surrendering, and it's the entire route path.
Mhm.
So that plus because it just says that the 20.21 rule says any broken infantry that is both adjacent, known good order, blah blah blah, and unable to route away from it. So like at the end of it, if you're unable to route away, that would still invoke. Since it's the entire path per the Q&A, then that would invoke surrender.
Right. That's in the example, in the comprehensive route example.
Okay. Yeah.
And as Jim pointed out, you either surrender or you are eliminated for failure to route by remaining adjacent to an enemy unit.
Right. Yeah. So
The reason-
now, and that would not imply. Now, does that invoke no quarter then? Right?
Well, you'd have to invoke no quarter to eliminate the unit.
Yeah, I think you'd have to. Yeah,
Right.
it's the same thing,
Right.
regardless of. Okay. Yeah.
So I don't. Again, I'll have to dig on it. So I'm only giving you an off the cuff answer, Matt. But when he reaches that location earlier, his routing was done. He had moved his
Where you at?
unit route. Then
you at
Curt
this
had
one?
revealed the unit after the routing was done, and therefore its path didn't apply. That Q&A or nothing applied at that path, and the rule says you can't end your route adjacent to an enemy target. You're eliminated for failure to route. It's similar to moving into that hex and saying, "Oh shit, get bounced back. My routing is done and I'm dead." You don't surrender when you do that.
Right.
But
I
so-
was under the impression if you end the route phase adjacent to a good order known armed enemy unit, which single man counter counts for that, by the way, you're dead.
Yeah, it's not
You don't
the Q&A.
surrender, you're dead.
I think the Q&A. No, but we just heard that there's an example. The
You would be
comprehensive
unable
example
to
has
route
this.
away, right? Only
Right.
to be able to, or well, but yeah, just look at the Q&A example or the comprehensive route example. He might have movement factors remaining, but he couldn't route back away because he'd be getting closer to enemy units.
But he's
So just
done
check
routing
into it.
anyway, right? So for example, if this
So
was
he-
his route,
he could have
let's
to
just say
surrender.
he routed there for 2. Then he went on and routed everybody else, and at the end of the phase, this guy pops off his concealment, he's dead.
Well, I don't
couldn't-
think he would have to pull it off at the end of its route phase.
I
At
thought
the
it
end
was
of
but
Yeah. Whoever
see, I
sees that.
thought you could remove concealment at any point during the route phase.
Yeah.
You can
At
you
any
can,
time.
but-
Right.
You can, but it only surrenders at the end of its route phase, not
Right,
the
but
route.
I'm saying it doesn't surrender. In this case, so let's just say the Italian is done routing his entire route phase. I say, okay, boom, this guy's real. He's dead.
He surrenders. That's the example.
Okay.
Whoever, I'm not sure who first said it, but someone said, look at the example, and I'm looking on page A29. The end of that first paragraph talks about this. If someone routes the P6 and stops, if there was a good order unit and next to it, the squad would surrender to it.
Again, I would have to ask.
That's a
Look at the
disrupted
example to
unit,
see
though.
if it's got more movement factors left when it got there, or if it was just done, right?
But I guess
I'm
what I'm
not saying we're not
saying is
right.
that doesn't matter, right? That doesn't matter because again, let's go back. It's the end of the route phase, and I've routed him and other units, or I've just routed him. It's the end of the route phase. I'm done routing. This guy pops up from a hip and then drops concealment. He dies.
No, I don't think so there, Kurt.
no.
I would have, again, I
Okay.
have to look at the
You're
rules.
saying
I
that he
think-
can surrender.
Yeah.
No, I'm
Okay.
saying he dies at the end of its route phase, not the route phase. So when it's done routing, that's when you have to do all those rules, and then you move on to the next guy and the next guy and the next guy, etc.
Well, I mean, I agree. It's done at the end of its route phase, yes. But the example, I disagree. I think with the example and the Q&A with the entire route path, it certainly the rule is that no, there's a surrender could still happen at that point.
See,
So
well, let's use this for example. All right, let's just say I've routed all my guys and I'm sitting here. Right? He routes, he's done. Then he routes and he's done. And at the end of his route phase, he comes on map.
Oh, well then no, then that's because it's no. I agree with Jim there. Then it's because
Then the
it's
second
its
guy
route phase. Yeah.
Yeah, the second guy would go, right? It's on a unit by unit basis when you
Right.
decide whether it's surrenders.
So what
or
happens to
whatever.
this guy?
In that
He would
case,
just be
nothing.
okay.
Yeah.
No,
was
he's
okay
ended the
when he
route.
ended-
No.
It says
I-
its route phase, not his route phase.
That's
Its route, not the route phase.
Well, okay. I mean, there's two different things, right? When we say its route phase, that's the language used in 20.21 under prisoners.
Right.
If we go back up to 10.5.1, what does that say? That might be. Aren't the route rules great?
So 10.51 starts with a routing unit may never route blah blah. So it's talking about
Right.
the routing.
Yeah. Assuming they could abide. Where is it? A routing unit. Where is it? It's the ending part. It's right in the middle. May never move adjacent. Where is it?
Because I don't think it's in 10.51. I think it's in 10.5. Right? During the route phase, a broken unit,
Yes.
right? Nor
May
regardless
not
from
re-
adjacent to this or in the same location known to me as both broken, unbroken, and armed.
So there it is. It may not end a route phase. So again, so differently. So for the prisoners, it's route phase, but for the final thing, so like we would die then.
Right. A broken unit may not end a route phase.
Yeah. So I would agree with I agree with Jim.
So that one right there is one that I have to dig into because that's a kind of a weird edge case for me.
A known enemy unit without interdiction only if it has low crawl during the route phase, but it still may not be adjacent to an unbroken and armed known enemy unit at the end of the route phase, or it will be eliminated for failure to route. So it dies.
Well, as it's written, I almost think of all of that stuff dies, but I want to look and see.
Right. No, they both die because it says right there. It still may not be adjacent to an unbroken and armed known enemy unit at the end of the route phase.
Right. Well,
or it will be eliminated for failure to route.
The scenario was that the L18 French.
Hold on a second. So let me start from the beginning here, guys.
Okay.
All right. So this guy routes to and ends here. This guy's hip, right? This guy's hip.
He doesn't have to
He
be
routes
hip,
to there. Right. But, all right. So let's just say he's hip. He routes to here. The Italian route phase ends, and this guy says, "Oh, I'm real." According to the last sentence of 10.5, it still may not be adjacent to an unbroken and armed known enemy unit at the end of the route phase, or it will be eliminated for failure to route. So both these guys die.
Right, but I think that where Jim and I disagree is the M18. Like when he pops up, when the guy routes into
right,
M18,
but that has nothing to do with this case. The route phase is over. This guy reveals himself.
So then they're both dead.
die.
Yes, then they're both dead.
Right.
Yeah,
you can do a lot of buts, but yeah. So that was the point, right?
Well, no, but we started with if he reveals, he doesn't reveal after the K18 route, but he reveals after the M18 route. The M18 guy, I think, would there could be an opportunity to take that as a prisoner.
No,
K18 is dead.
It ends its route. It ends the route phase. The route phase adjacent to a known armed enemy unit. It's dead.
No, but again, if the L18 squad reveals just as he's ending his route phase, then he could still take a prisoner.
No, the rule doesn't say that.
Look at the example. Look at the example.
My
the
point
example
is,
of play. Example of play is I'm quoting, and again, whoever.
So he's
whoever
done routing.
this,
He's done routing. The route phase is over, and he reveals it. It's the end of the route phase. When he reveals himself, they both die.
Okay, that's a different situation.
Right. But it's not, because you're saying when he moves in here and the route phase ends, you're saying that his route phase is just ending. No, the route phase is ending.
Well, again, I would say I would think the player, if I'm the Italian player, I mean, the French player would have to say immediately, okay, now I'm revealing. You'd have to do it right after I.
Right. Which is it? Well, again, you end. Okay, my route phase is done. Now it's right, but it's the French's turn to route. But he says, okay, at the end of your route phase, boom, he's here, you die.
Well, then that would be different. Yeah, it would be right. I'm talking about the Italian guy routing.
Okay, all right.
So the only thing I want to say here is for the guys that are listening, keep in mind that what we're talking about here is one of those extremist edge cases of routing.
Right.
99.95% of all routing isn't anywhere near this hard.
No, and the point I was trying to make when we started this is process. Have a process. And if your first part of your process involves picking your target, you're going to go through all of 10.5 and 10.5.1 in a sense in your mind, because you have to abide by all. It always says, if you want to route to a certain location and that's your target, but you can't get there, as long as you abide by the route rules, you can route quote unquote anywhere. So the process, right? And well, so somebody just asked, if the broken unit tries to enter the hip unit's location, he bounces and dies. And this guy comes on map. He comes on map unconcealed, right? Right. So if there's 2, 4, boom, I'm going to go here 6. The French unit would reveal itself, and he would die for failure. There's actually a couple of those examples in the examples. But bouncing a unit like that route, and honestly, it would help because this guy now would no longer be routing here, right? But I was trying to say at the end of the route phase, because the end of the route phase aligns with Matt's end of this unit's route phase. That's not. It's the end of the route phase. The route phase. I pop up. These guys are dead. So. But again, one of the things I was trying to impart for you guys that are learning the route phase, it's not like most rules, not nearly as hard until you get these edge cases, which it never fails. You look at an edge case and go, oh, wow, that'll never happen. Your next game is going to happen. It's absolutely going to happen. But pick a target. And by picking that target, you go through the process of saying all of the 10.5 and 10.51 rules. And that's the key, because route rules are inherently challenging to learn. They're much bigger hurdle to get over than to continue to hurt. They're easily learnable in an ASL sense.
Hey, Curt.
Yes, sir.
Quick comment. Mainly for the people watching the video, not necessarily for the people here in the round table. One thing to remember is to not ignore ignorable terrain, because you can use the ignorable terrain rule to have some control over your routing units, which you typically don't
Well,
really
let's
have
go back
control
up
over,
here, guys.
to maybe get to a destination where you want.
Where this guy can ignore this and ignore this, right? But he doesn't have to. So instead of going back here for 3, you could go 2, 4, 6, or you could go 2, 4 here. Now, again, the one of the things you have to factor in is your victory conditions and where are your leaders and all the other things that go, right? Because if you're the phasing player and you're routing, your goal is to get your routed units that don't have a leader, your DM'd units, to within a hex of the leader that can advance onto them, right? And so that's when you think about moving units and all the things that go with that. There's some that I would like to think ASL is like chess, easy to learn, difficult to master, but it's not. It's hard to learn.
Yeah, look for all your ignorable terrain and see how you can use it to guide your units to where they need to go.
Right. Because here's the thing. This guy, there might be a guy, depending on the setup, there could be a guy here that you don't see. If you route here and take the interdiction and then go here and he pops, again, look at the map. Pick your target. Find your target, because I can't emphasize this enough. If you pick your target, you will go through all of the route rules that you need to learn to route. Can't be moving closer. Can't leave a building. You can always enter and remember something like up here, right? Up here, building and woods aren't the same thing. Like, right? I can go building, but woods, in a sense, is a little different. And always pay attention to the map edges. If you can avoid ending up DM at the map edge, do so, because the ability to kill you. Good players will find a way. Good players will find a way to, and they will make an effort. And it happens a lot if you play Red Barricades, Valley of the Guards. They will make a concerted effort to kill units without firing a shot. And bad players will put themselves in a position to do that. And that's enough. Scott Rowland just made a point that if you can route forward, find a way to do that too, right? Find a way to do that too. And the other thing, just as an edge case, one of the better players I've ever played talked about how awesome he loves to play the Japanese. And playing the Japanese, and he says this because you can voluntarily break Japanese units. I'm pretty sure they break down into 2 half squads. But if they route back to a leader, they aren't DM. Their morale's up by 1, and in rally terrain, oftentimes they'll rally on a 10 when they're DM. So that's, obviously you're risking, and it's scenario dependent. But Japanese will and nationalities will change, like partisans, the German SS versus Russians, different things. Again, edge cases, different units, and all the things that go with that. But I would tell you, if you're learning the route rules, the first thing to do is to and I'm telling you guys the truth. I read the ASL rule book every night, and I'm playing so much now that I'll read the rules that I'm fumbling with, or that maybe an edge case comes up and I'm not sure. I'll read that rule that night. 10.5 and 10.51. When you grasp those 2 rules, routing becomes a potential strategy play. If that makes sense, it becomes a potential strategy play for good players. And that's when you kind of move to the next level of playing, understanding that routing is potentially, you can strategically use the route phase. And vice versa, understanding what the VC are, and understanding, a lot of times when you have like a building that is the objective, there's a great article, and I just forgot. I want to say it was Mark Pitcavage wrote about defending buildings. And there's a phenomenal article about how, like this is a challenge to defend if the units are coming this way, because he can be in +3 temp all the way till he gets to the building. Whereas, this side of the building, much less open to attack and stuff like that. But thinking about that for routing is a big deal. When you're setting up play fighting withdrawal, play fighting withdrawal with Finns that self-rally, and look at how different the rally phase plays for the Finns than it does for other units. In Red Barricades and in Stalingrad, a lot of times the Russians saddle with 4-3-6s, and the only way to get them 6 movement factors is when they're broke. And but unfortunately, they only come back on like a -4 die roll heat of battle. So anyway, that was the idea. Like I said, guys, I'd hope to have a player. He had some plans come in late, but I'm planning on the next time having a player in here to walk through just like this. I'll have a Basel map set up, and they'll walk through potential strategies for setup or defense or whatever. But if there's anything in particular, hop onto Neil's site and drop me a suggestion on what you guys would like to see from a rules perspective. The other thing I mentioned earlier, guys, the ASL Hall of Fame will be second induction will be at Winter Offensive this year. One of the no-brainers is we're going to do something to honor Dean Essig from an overall perspective. But and just so you know, there's a panel of people that select the Hall of Fame, and it has to be 100%. Everybody has to agree that the person deserves to be in. But scenarios, we're going to let the players participate in that part. And Neil, maybe you can do something on your site. Eventually, we'll probably put something together from an official perspective, and allow you to participate. I went longer than I wanted to go, and I apologize for that. Usually, I'd like to just stick to an hour each week, but I could talk ASL for hours, and hopefully some of you guys learned some things, got a little better at routing, and so every session we'll do this. I'll go through all the official stuff that we want to talk about, publication, production schedule, whatever, and then at the end I'll have a player or a strategy session that can be open-ended, and you guys can hang out and talk as long as you want, and I can, like I said, share my screen and all things go with that. So Jimmy, thank you. Matt, thank you. Stu, thank you guys. Scotty for participating and throwing stuff up there. Again, you guys, thank you for attending. I know, like I said, you have to understand, it may not be said enough, but we sincerely appreciate spending your hobby dollars, which are becoming less and less, on MMP products. We hope we're doing justice to the game, to the system, but just as importantly, guys, give them your time. I'm at an age where I realize my most valuable commodity is my time. And I love spending time with the group of guys, except Matt, that play this game and love this game. And always like getting better at stuff. So probably, I don't know that I'm going to go another month. I think I'll probably try this every couple weeks, 3 weeks, maybe, if I have enough topics. But at the latest, July 2nd will be the next roundtable. I'll put up a thing around. And then Neil, thank you, obviously, for, I know there's a lot of work in putting this together. I very, very much appreciate it. If you guys don't know Neil's site, Neil, put a link up there in the chat for them. I'm pretty sure everybody here knows it.
Yeah, they probably know about
hands down the best ASL for gamers. Jim Bishop's, if you want to learn the game, go back, and there's months and months. A lot of the articles, and I wrote an article about this a while back, guys. And the meeting's over if you guys want to head out. But I wrote an article about a while back about, for younger players, guys moving starter kit to ASL, guys getting into ASL. There is a laundry list of articles that have been published in the last 40 years that are must-haves. And I think it was in the last journal I published that, or the last operation. Anyway, I printed all those out, and there are quite a few articles from Jim's site, Jim Bishop, that I think are must-reads to help you get better, to help you understand some things. It's just invaluable. But
it's an operation. It was an operation.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Operations. Thank you.
I've told you my opinion. I think you should open MMP's website up there for free, because it is really good. Not just because I'm in it, but because the articles are in it. You calling out Mishcon, I was like, okay, you had me there.
Yeah. Well, and I will tell you guys, for those of you that don't know, I played professional baseball for a little bit, for a couple years. And one of the things that I was known for was preparation. I probably spent as much time preparing in video room as anybody that's ever played the game. And so I generally don't play stuff for the entertainment. I play it for the entertainment and to win. And I want to get better at stuff. And so all of these articles are written by players that are far better than me. And I would tell you, again, same thing. I'll read those. I always take those with me when I'm on a road trip or whatever I'm traveling, just to read, because obviously the rule book is, I would tell you, if you're not playing ASL yet, the ASL rule book is about 22 pages of rules with 461,000 pages of exceptions. And that's the challenge in learning, is the exceptions, because unfortunately, they're not collated the way they probably should be. They're not in a common sense order or fashion. And that tends to be kind of a barrier to entry. And I get that. I think everybody gets that. But there's a list of articles, and it's pretty thick. I would tell you, it's probably 2 inches thick printed out, the total articles, but every one of them talks about a fundamental aspect. Last building on the left, or last building on the block, is the name of the article that I can't remember. I want to say Pitkevich wrote, that had to do with building defense. And it's one of the best articles that I've ever read. And I would tell you the other one that I think I continue to read, because I want to digest every single thing, is Aaron Cleveland's article in half squads. It's an aspect of play that you don't get to for a while as you learn ASL, but it is absolutely essential if you want to be good at ASL. Understanding the value of a half squad, and I always like people when they write stuff that they make definitive statements, and in that statement is in that article is, hey, here's the half squad, here's the squads you always deploy. Here's the squads you think about deploying based on VC, and here's the squads you never deploy. I don't know the game well to know those things. When I look at them, it's like, well, why? Totally makes sense. And then anything Mike McGrath's ever written, best ASL player probably in history by a pretty good margin. Fast. If you ever get a chance to watch him play, stand over the board and watch him play. It's like watching Sandy Koufax pitch. What he does on the table, and it's awesome, and it's embarrassing. It's humiliating and humbling, because he's so much better than everybody else. And anytime you hear Mike say, I don't know, I'm going to have to go to the rule book, that's Mike saying, I know that fucking rule doesn't exist and you're full of crap, but I'll oblige you and read it to you out loud. So yeah. So again, thank you guys for checking in. And one last note on the publishing stuff that I started this off with for you guys that are watching or that didn't listen to. Those are all targets for us, and that means something probably a little bit more than it might have in the past because we've kind of settled down, anchored down to hold ourselves to these. But we won't hit a timeline just to hit a timeline. Everything we do will be done with the best of intention, best of effort. Stuff that's on the horizon, real quick for you guys that hung around this long. The Desert Hazel, Fox and the Rats, Polish Eagles. Let's see what else. Bill Cirillo's got a magazine coming out around Twilight of the Reich. Kohima, White Death, which is Finland. Another action pack from Fort. Four Bridges. We're also working on a starter kit for Red Barricades. A little thing actually is pretty cool. Those things are all over the horizon, but on the schedule. And that's that. Always, guys, this is my server. If you look up at the top of this server on the left-hand side, there's a thing called Vassal save files. I've got about 120 or 130 Vassal scenarios that I've created save files for. Everything's pulled. There's a couple BRT campaign game, a couple Valor of the Guard stuff. I did one for pre-purchase. I did one post-purchase if you just want to get in and start playing. And then I've done, like I said, most of them are all official. There are some Schwerpunk. There are some third-party stuff in there. But you're more than welcome.
Hey, Curt.
To put yes, sir.
Yeah, question. Is there any possibility you could, I assume you have them in a folder on your drive somewhere. Could you like zip them into one big thing and provide a link to somewhere like Dropbox?
You could, but I'm not done doing it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like I've started to go back and make sure, because here's the thing you guys need to understand. I don't want you to take one of my my Vassal save files, play a scenario, and found out I left a unit out, right? So I'm trying to make sure that they are perfect. So I'm going back and relooking and making sure they are all done. But yes, I can probably take them now and put it on a Dropbox file for you guys, and then just add it later. I'll that's a good suggestion, Neil, and I'll actually work on that.
That'd be great.
And Neil actually has on his website some Vassal save. I think I've taken all the ones you did and done them as well. But he has Vassal save file. That you do, don't you, Neil?
Yeah, every time we play a game, I put it up there. Yeah.
Yep. So Neil has them on his website as well. But like I said, I have about 120. There's some monster ones. I have the 2 mapper from Red Barricades and Red Factories done with all the, and I do all of the terrain changes, all the overlay stuff. I've actually started to concentrate on the ones that have tons and tons of overlays, because those tend to, if you look at Roar, you'll find a commonality as you go from most to least played. And then as you get to the bottom of the list, you find partisans, you find significant numbers of SSRs and overlays, you'll find desert. And I've tried to facilitate making that a little bit easier to just get up and run and play, because I know, again, time is an essence. I have Pete Schelling's little desert thing done. Purchase charts on the Vassal save file as well. So yeah. Anyway, you guys have a wonderful Sunday. And I will talk to you guys soon. I'll put up a note probably in the next week about what's going on. Neil will have the video up, I'm sure, as soon as he can.
Yep.
And you guys have a wonderful week.
Thanks, Curt.
Yep.
Get to the chopper!
If you like what you saw, please like, share, and subscribe. If you didn't like what you saw, thanks for watching, and let me know how I can do better. See you in the next video.